Hello, 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 all. Vaney Hariri here, co-founder of Think 3D, welcoming you to Open Gyms. I'm going to be explaining what our Open Gyms are here in just a bit, but first we'll give folks just a second to get on in here. We are excited to have you. This is something that we're going to be doing in some form or fashion with the regular cadence. The thought process behind doing open gyms is giving folks out there an opportunity to work through some different things. A lot of times when we do trainings, no matter how interactive that they are, a lot of times people don't get an opportunity to ask that one question or to dive deeper into what it is that they're thinking. Sometimes they struggle to find the space to be able to get into the weeds and what it is that they want to talk about. So the idea and the concept with Open Gyms is giving you an opportunity to get with me, to ask questions and things about that nature, so you have an opportunity to go a little bit deeper into things that are actually going to advance you as a person and as a leader. And so what we're always trying to do is bridge the gap of leadership in life. You know, being a leader doesn't just help you in your profession. It doesn't just help you in your job. It helps you in your life. And so we want to make sure that we're working on concepts that work for that. One of our biggest phrases here at Think 3D is that a culture will emerge whether intended or not. But if it's not one that you invest in, it'll certainly be one that you pay for. And so what we mean by that is you're going to have a culture regardless. The real question is that culture of design? Is it intentional? Is it on purpose? And so those are some of the things that we're going to be working through. I have some various things that I want to get into today that I think are important. I always try to pull things that are really relevant to me, things that I have experienced recently, or things that I'm seeing in the work that we do out in the community and with different organizations. So we'll be talking about a couple things like that, but we want this to be driven by your questions, your thoughts, and things that you have going on. So feel free to populate with some different comments or different thoughts that you have, and I'll try to work off of those the best that I can. If we don't get too many, that's fine. We got some various things to talk about. So we're excited to get that started. Again, we'll give ourselves just an opportunity to get some folks populated in here. Also, how is everyone doing today? I hope you are having an amazing Friday. Sometimes I tend to forget what days it are. I think it's the life of an entrepreneur. Sometimes you can forget what the days are because you know your week is full, however you slice it. But it is Friday, so we're going to enjoy this Friday. So we're going to have some folks join us, and we're going to talk about a few different things. One of the first things that I want to get into today, one of the things that I want to talk through is prioritization. This is one of the things that we hear a lot about in organizations. Kelsey, how are we doing? Happy Friday. How are you? I'll let you answer, but okay, we got some folks in here. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. One of the things we're going to be talking about is priority. Priority is a big concept, and it's not just a concept for work; it's a concept for life. So we're going to talk about that piece of it. Ladies, so happy to have you join us. If you have any questions or any um, uh, comments that you want me to get into, please go ahead and populate those, and I'll work off what you're going through. So I just want everybody to understand, when we talk about open gym, this is loose format. This is for all of us. This is not me just delivering a message to you. I'm more than willing to do that. But we want to have some dialogue. We want to have a little bit of back and forth. I want to know the things that are on your mind, the things that are challenging you, the things that are that you're up against. So any of those types of things, any things that you're running into, challenges, frustrations, or whatever, go ahead, populate those in the chat, and I will work off of those. Otherwise, we'll talk about some of the things that I plan to get into. Okay. So the first thing that we're talking about while people are getting an opportunity to do that is this idea of priority. This is something we've been running into a lot with a lot of our clients because one of the things that we notice is that many of the people that we work with have a hard time finding their whelmed. People have a hard time finding their whelmed. And let me tell you what I mean. Everybody knows when they're overwhelmed. Everybody knows when they're underwhelmed. People rarely know when they're whelmed. If you have a team, you are not likely to have somebody come to you, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, boss, I just wanted to let you know we have the right amount of work. I don't need any more, don't need any less. This is the right amount of work." That's something that's just rarely going to happen. People are always generally going to feel like they're overwhelmed because the work is never ending. And what sometimes we have to appreciate and realize is that that is by design. If you ever run out of work, that means you're going to be out of work. And so the work never ends. And anybody can, answer this in the chat. But can any of you remember a time where you ran out of work, where you were done with all of the work? It doesn't happen. And so when you don't run out of work, the only way to deal with that work is, one, to be able to work better. So to work faster, to work smoother, to work better as a team. If you remember most of the things that you ever did the first time you did them, how fast did you do them in comparison to how fast you do them now that you have 2, 5, 10, 12 years of experience? You do them considerably faster and likely at a higher quality. So the way that we deal with having too much work is to be able to work more effectively. But the other piece in terms of having more work than any one person can do is priority, meaning that knowing that we're not going to get to all of the work, what work do we want to do first? And as we set priority, there's a couple things that really determine the priority, right? The immediate urgency of the situation, what needs to be done now. Sometimes that's being dictated to you by factors that are beyond your control. And then the second element that we want to consider when we think about prioritization is, what does it do? What does it do? Okay, Kelsey, you said you run out of work many times in your life. Eliana, what's up? Good to see you, my dear. Now, when you run out of work, what does that look like in your role when you run out of work? Because usually that means a couple things. That means that the position is in jeopardy, because if you're out of work for too long, people have to question whether or not we need this position. Or you get so bored that you want to leave. So let me know what's going on with that, because I'm interested to see what was going on in your circumstance in those times where you felt like you have run out of work. Oh, you said 0 times. Okay. All right. I misread. My apologies. Yeah, that's going to be true for most people. 0 times are you going to run out of work. You're not going to run out of work. And if you do, let me tell you a story. So one time I had this job. It was super fun. I showed up. We didn't really have to do that much. And we got to get up and play foosball when we wanted. And nobody really cared about how long our breaks were, because there wasn't all that much work. Can you guess what happened just a few months later? Any guesses? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I got laid off. I got laid off because I ran out of work. So it's not likely to happen. And so the second element that we have to have is, in prioritization, is making sure we prioritize the things that do the most things. So 2 big things that are going to determine our priority. The first thing that's going to determine our priority is urgency. Those are usually circumstances outside of our control. Something's on fire, we got to put it out right now. That's going to determine what takes priority over everything else. The other thing that's going to determine priority is doing things that do more things. Meaning, if this thing that we do helps address 5 things, we're going to put that in priority over something that only helps us address 2. It only makes sense. We're going to get the most value, so we're going to prioritize those things that make the most value. Those are the 2 ways that we really address priority, right? Urgency and utility, the things that do the most things. And so we want to make sure that we are doing that, not just in our work, but also in our life. Kelsey hit us back. What I notice in my office when things are slow and people think they don't have enough work is a large influx of complaints and employee relations issues. Director Life. Yeah, absolutely. Idle hands. Idle hands do the devil's work. So when people don't have a lot of things to keep them busy, I want you all to just be honest with yourselves for a moment. A lot of people really relish in being busy. It's part of their identity. It shows that they're being successful, that things are happening in their life. But how many times have you ever walked away from somebody saying that they're busy and you felt good for them? You were like, good for you. Good for you that you're busy. Busy doesn't necessarily feel like a good thing. And why are so many people committed to being busy? Well, for a lot of folks, the busier they are, the easier it is for them to do whatever it is they're doing. When they have time to slow down and stop, they also allow time for their emotions to catch up to them, their fears to catch up to them, their self-talk to catch up to them, their insecurities to catch up to them. When people are busy, they're so busy on the task that they don't have a lot of time to focus on those other blemishes. But when people have a little bit more time and they're claiming that they don't have enough work, what they do have time for is drama, interpersonal issues, all of those different types of challenges. And this is why we don't want to limit prioritization just to our jobs. We want to impact prioritization to our lives. And this is one of the things I want everyone to really listen to, because almost anything that we teach is not a work skill, it's a life skill. And prioritization is something that is actually more important that you execute it in your personal life than it is that you do even in your business. So what we're going to talk about here in just a second is we're going to talk about the prioritization of work. That's an important thing. Prioritization of feelings, relationships, and choices. So we're going to talk about that in just 1 second. Just another thing that Kelsey was saying is busy does not equal productive. Our culture has an obsession with busy, and it's the wrong obsession. Absolutely. We want to be able to put that down. Ileana gave us Ills, as we call her, gave us a quote here from Dale Carnegie: a busy mind has no time to work. Exactly. That's why people put so much stock in being busy. What we want for folks is less to be busy, because again, you're always going to have the work, you're always going to have the challenges, but more prioritization. So we talked about prioritization of work. I want to take you into the personal idea of prioritization. And the first thing is the prioritization of feelings and emotions. Now, some people don't think about feelings or emotions as something that you can prioritize. And it's not like you simply just get to choose to put this one on top of that one, but rather it's a thought process that we would encourage you to engage in to help you prioritize your emotions, meaning that we want to prioritize emotions that do the most. Remember, one of the two things is urgency. The other thing is doing things that do the most things. So what are the emotions that we can engage in that do the most for us? So what I would like for my folks who are online right now, just to populate the chat right now, what are the emotions that do the most for you? And then we're going to talk about the emotions that do the least of you. So I just want you to throw in the chat right now, what are the emotions that do the most for you? So let's just talk about that for a quick second. So I want everybody just to throw in the chat, what are the emotions that do the most for you? What are the emotions that do the most for you? What are the emotions that when you engage in it, it produces things for you? Either better relationships, a better experience, a quality mood, people being attracted to you, uh, people being more easily influenced by you. What are the kind of emotions that produce a tangible benefit for you? A weird answer, but anger. It can really drive me to act. Now, here's where I'm gonna challenge you on that one. Act to do what? And my question to you would be, how much do you inventory the actions that are produced in you through anger versus the acts that are produced in you through, say, passion or care or concern? Do you inventory kind of the results? Because anger might get us to act, but it also speaks to how we act. And like most things, it's not what you say to a person, it's how you say it to a person. It's not what you give to a person, it's how you give it to a person. It's not what you do for a person, it's how you do it for a person. So I'm interested to know how you do things when you're angry versus in those other things. But for everyone else as well, give me those emotions that do the most things. Ooh. Um, uh, Ills, need help with this, especially emotions with the condition of the world. What is that? World wars. Emotions that do the most for me, probably desire, which is usually comes from um, wanting change. Very good. So desire. Desire is, let's talk about that. So desire is one of those emotions. So right now we got anger, we got desire. We got Megan in the building. We have peaceful, pride, and grateful. Those ones do the most. Um, and if you wouldn't mind adding in some of these, what are some of the things that it does for you? For me, as you can see, when we talk about grateful, gratitude is one of the most important elements of my quality of life is gratitude. Um, Feeling good about what I have, being appreciative about what I have doesn't mean that I don't want more. It doesn't mean that I don't want better. But it keeps me grounded into what I have. And when I'm grateful for what I have, I realize that if you have more than what you came here with, how can you be ungrateful? You know what I mean? Um, I have the most in my life right now. I have the most control over my life right now. I have the most patience in my life right now. I have the most um, uh, 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 healthy relationship with my wife right now. All of these types of things are the best in my life right now. So when you have more than what you were given, how can you be ungrateful? Let's see what we got here. Kelsey responded. Um, I also don't assign value to emotions. They aren't good or bad. They just are. Yeah. So what I mean by anger is I'm acting in anger, hopefully. Let me see here. Hopefully I'm not acting in anger. Hopefully I am acting in passion or dedication or desire. So I draw a hard line there. There you go. Emotions are things I don't control. We will never live in a life where we don't get angry. What we can control is our actions. So I aim, let me see here. There we go. So I aim to act in anger, but anger is typically the emotion that can drive me to act. Ooh, okay, very good. See, this is important for us to get this different kind of context here. All right, we got a few more responses here. Ills, it helps me focus on what I want most, and this screen is so small, so you're gonna have to forgive me as I read these things. It helps me focus on what I want most and keeps me from being distracted by other things. Okay, very good. Um, let's see, Megan. Peaceful and graceful give me clarity in situations, much needed reflection time. Pride is more about my ambitions and self image. Very good. Where we at, Soleil? We got Soleil in the building. Good to see you, brother. Um, oh, he's road tripping, so the live is lagging a little bit. So we'll catch up with him. So you see the importance of understanding what these emotions do to you. As Kelsey pointed out, you don't get to control whether or not you have these emotions. You are going to have these emotions. What I do is, in terms of my response to these emotions, is I try to identify the ones that provide me the most benefit and prioritize those emotions. Like, for instance, there are situations in which you can be angry and sad at the same time, right? Something might bring sadness from you, and it might produce anger in you as well. One emotion you might want to feed more energy to than another. Obviously, we want to think about ones that people think about, the ones that make us feel good, like being peaceful, like being happy. And all of these things are more of a process than they are a state. And so, like, for instance, happiness is more about a process. What do you do to be happy? The idea of just being happy is not really a thing. And so when we talk about prioritizing these emotions, what we're talking about is what emotions are we going to apply a process to? What emotions are we going to apply a process to? And what I mean by that is anger is something that drives me. My process needs to be, how do I convert such anger into something that is productive, like desire, that is passion, things of that nature. As we say, anger burns, passion builds. So when I know that it motivates me to action, but it can never negatively impact my actions, I have to engage in a process that's allowing me to use that motivation to get me moving, but make sure it doesn't determine how I move. That's something that has to happen intentionally. That's something that has to happen on purpose. Otherwise, we're going to be a victim to those emotions. And when we assign behaviors to those feelings, we want to assign behaviors that do the most things. So, for instance, in almost any scenario, one of the behaviors that does the most for anyone is communication. So when I'm in certain emotions, one of the things that I want to lean on as a tool, as a part of my process, is to communicate it. Now, I'm not always communicating to the person I'm frustrated with, or I'm not always communicating to the person that I'm happy with, but I'm always communicating, sometimes with myself, sometimes with others, because there's nothing that I could do in most instances that are going to do more than communicate. So I have options. I could stew on it. I could be resentful of it. I could be frustrated by it. I can do all of those different type of things. And none of those things are going to do as much for me as communicating it through with myself, communicating it to the person that I'm happy with, communicating it to the person that I'm frustrated with. Nothing is going to do more for me. Nothing is going to advance my circumstance more than doing that thing, which is why when I'm in situations and I could be angry with a person, I could yell at a person, I could sit in my feelings, I could do whatever. The thing that I prioritize above all of those other things is communication, because nothing is going to do more for me than that. And so when we talk about prioritization, we also want to try to prioritize our feelings, our relationship with those feelings, and which feelings we apply a process to. Nothing is going to happen to us magically. And I think one of the most disrespectful things you can do to a person is assume that they came the way that they are and that they're not doing um, what they can with what they have. We don't know. This is why we want to be curious. We're never going to truly understand what's going on with a person. I think what is reasonable for us to ask of people is, no matter how they feel, to be thoughtful about how those feelings are impacting their behaviors and how their behaviors are impacting us. And once we've done that, we have an opportunity to ask people to engage in a better process that's going to get them a better result. What are some of the behaviors that you all run into that yield the least value for you? That when you're in this behavior, it just does not benefit you at all. It doesn't do any real good for you. You find that it might even cause you to have some different setbacks. What are some of the emotions that work against what you're trying to accomplish and don't actually provide the value that you would like them to? What are some of the emotions that provide us the least value or can work against what it is that we're trying to accomplish? What are some of the emotions that provide us the least value or can even work against what it is that we're trying to do? What are some of the emotions that work against what we are trying to do? While we're having some people populated, um, for me, things that really don't do anything for me, worry, self-pity, um, those things don't produce things in me, good things in me, excuse me. They don't motivate me to move. Um, they don't encourage me to do good work, prideful work, loving work. And so I don't put a whole lot of stock in those things. That doesn't mean I don't feel those things. What it means is that I immediately try to move off of those things and use a process that allows me to engage in something better. Kelsey said here, behaviors that are not helpful, gossip, complaining, yelling, being overly critical, not being willing to listen. These things can happen when you are angry if you don't choose to act with intention. There we go. She said that beautifully right there. I got someone here that said fear. Absolutely. Now, here's the thing about when we talk about fear. Fear is one of those things that is a prime example where fear is core to courage, right? When people talk about courage, a lot of times when people talk about courage, they talk about it as if it's an absence of fear. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the presence of fear and the ability to overcome that fear because something is presumably more valuable. So there's no way that we're going to avoid feeling fear. What it does to us is how we have to challenge ourselves, how it impacts us, how it keeps us from using our voice, how it keeps us from taking that chance, how it keeps us from deploying our skills, how it keeps us from bettering ourselves. So fear is for sure one of the most powerful motivators, and how we engage with that really is going to determine what it does for us. And one way, it can hide us under our bed and keep us from really pursuing the things that we want. And in other ways, it can help us to develop the courage to be able to do the hard thing, even when it's not convenient. Then we got another one here. Oh, fear is a good one. Fear can really hijack your brain. So we have to work hard to act intentionally when we are feeling fear. Absolutely. Fear is definitely a big one. Let me know if there are any other emotions that when you are feel those, they really take you back. They diminish you. They take life from you. Because again, we can't make these emotions go away. But here's what happens. A lot of people, because they have a right to feel a thing, sometimes they can hold on to that feeling. You'll hear people say sometimes, look, I get to be angry. Just let me be angry. Why in the world would I do that? Now, that doesn't mean I need to rush you past your emotions. But what you got to ask yourself is you have a right to be angry, but do you want to be? And if you don't want to be angry and it doesn't produce anything in you, that means we have to enter into our process that works as past being angry. So let's talk about those two. Let's talk about those two for a second. Anger and fear. I want you all to share, what is your process to get past anger? What is your process to get through fear? Or do you have one at all? What is your process to get past anger? What is your process to get past fear? While you're populating that, I'll tell you one of mine right now. These are earbuds. And if you see me out in the world almost 100% of the time, so probably about 95% of the time, I'm going to have earbuds in my pocket. Now, I'm a musician. Music is one of the keys to my soul. I've identified it as one of the things that allows me to move in between emotions. And there are some instances when I'm angry, when I'm fearful, when I'm dejected, that I could go find a corner. I could go sit in a broom closet. I could go be in my car. I could go for a walk. I could put in my earbuds. I could listen to a particular song that produces a particular emotion in me, that hits me with a certain frequency and a certain energy that allows me to tap into a better feeling that does more for me. It doesn't always have to be joy or happiness. In some instances, it's clarity. Some instances, it's understanding. But just moving from one emotion to another just is not going to happen magically. And I can sit there for as long as I want to. As we say, you can go there, but you don't get to stay there. And so what is your process to help you work through these different emotions? This is part of my process. It's a tool. And so I have it with me all of the time. And so if I feel myself getting flushed in the face, I feel myself getting angry, I feel myself wanting to dip into poor behaviors, I put my earbuds in. I try to go for a walk. I try to sit down. I pick that right song. I even have various playlists that produce certain moods in me. Like most of you, I'm sure, have a workout playlist, and maybe even a kind of workout playlist. Why? Why do you have that playlist? What does it do for you? Likely it helps you produce an emotion of intensity. Some people want to listen to death metal. Some people want to listen to hardcore, whatever, so that they can get intensity going. Some people like to listen to jazz or R&B so they can get calm or they can get focused. It just goes to show how you can use certain tools or a process to put you into a particular state. So I'm interested to hear what you all do when you're dealing with anger or fear. What is your process to work past those things? Soleil says, to get past anger, I walk away. I smile a little bit. I shake my arms and legs, say a little joke to myself to get past fear. I haven't actually worked out a process for that, in all honesty. So anger, we got something for that. Fear, we don't really have anything for that yet. First of all, that's just great awareness, because now it lets us know what an investment would look like if we work through a process to get past our fear. We work through a process to get past our fear. That's something I really encourage you to look at. One of the things that I do when I'm being addressed with fear is the way that I challenge fear is through rationalization. Okay. I try to use my logical mind to challenge my fear. I use my logical mind to challenge my fear. Here's one of the first things that I do. Number one, I ask myself, is there a version of this where there would be no fear? One thing I need people to understand about fear is a biological reality because it's necessary and it's valued in many ways. If there are any people who are fearless, they are not with us anymore, because fear keeps you alive. Fear keeps you safe. There's a value to fear, no doubt about it. We don't want that fear to over-index its value to where there's a diminishing return. And so we want to be able to challenge that fear through logic. Is there a reason for me to be fearful? Let me give you an example. I help, develop leaders. And there are leaders that every conversation they have, they think that the conversation is going to go poorly, no matter how many conversations they've had that haven't. We have people who every single conversation they have, they fear that it will go wrong, no matter how many conversations have gone well. You see, that's a person not engaging the logic. What I want to do is I want to engage the logic. Of my last 50 conversations that I've had, how many people have yelled at me, thrown something at me, stormed off, attacked me, or any of those other type of things? If I say to myself, well, none, then what justifies this fear? Why? The converse of that is to say, what generally is the outcome of these conversations? Am I generally successful in these conversations? If the answer is no, that means you need to work on your communication. If the answer is yes, why? Why the fear? Given the fact you've proven that you can be successful consistently. So for me, when I try to get in my fear, I try to get myself together, I try to get quiet, and I try to ask myself logical questions. Imposter syndrome. This is another one that we deal with quite a lot with people. People will say, I don't know why I got this job. I'm not meant for this job. I can't do it. I don't think I'm going to be successful. I'm going to fail, da, da, da. And sometimes we have to ask people, we have to say, given the fact that someone who is benefiting or is going to be impacted by how well you do this job gave you this job, ask yourself, do you think this person who would be impacted by the way you do this job that gave you this job because they thought you couldn't do it? Who would do that? No one would. You got the job because someone outside of yourself thought you could do the job. Of course you could do the job. It's not just you that thinks it, right? It may only be you that questions it. So how do we get through that rationalization? So that's just something that I offer to you, Soleil. It's something for you to look at. I like the process that you talk about, with your anger. It's funny, the thing with anger is people tell us what to do when we're young, and we forget about it when it's most valuable. Let me tell you this real quick. So people who smoke, when you ask people who smoke why they smoke, one of the most common answers that you get is that it relaxes them. People say, well, it relaxes me. Now, the nicotine does play some part in that, but that's not really what relaxes them. And if you're watching at home, what actually relaxes them? Well, we usually get a couple answers. One, getting away, so stepping away from an environment. Two, it's actually the breathing and the pause. So for a lot of adults, when we were young, people used to tell us all the time, when you're really angry, they say, hey, go to timeout, go take a breather, go take a lap. They would tell you to take a deep breath, and they would tell you to count to 10. They would try to take you out of the situation. They would tell you to breathe, and they would tell you to pause. People almost never do this unless they're smoking. They leave the office, they go outside and smoke shack or whatever it is. They get away from the environment, they take breaths, and they take a break. They breathe, they pause. These things you could do at your desk. It works, but a lot of times people don't actually enter into a process. So when we're talking about prioritizing things, number one, we want to prioritize, or we want to give the most energy and effort to the behaviors that produce the most out of us. I'm not going to put a whole lot of energy in shame. It doesn't do anything for me. Rather, I want to put more energy in confidence. I want to put more energy and courage. That's where I really built my process. That's where I really know, how do I tap into my courage? How do I tap into my gratitude? How do I tap into, because those things are going to do the most. Have you ever been around a grateful person versus an angry person? Which one do you want to be around? You want to be around the grateful people. So gratitude does more than a lot of things, whereas one drives people away from you. One attracts people to you. And when people come around you and they're attracted to you because because you have a grateful attitude, what are the chances they have a grateful attitude? And what is it like when you're around people who are grateful versus when you're around people who are discontent or not grateful? What's the energy like? It's significantly better when you're around people who are in gratitude. So now I've gotten people close to me. They're attracted to me. I'm in gratitude. They have gratitude. I get to benefit from their gratitude. It makes it more likely that I get out of this negative behavior. It makes it more likely that I have people who come alongside me. It makes it more likely that we build on to do something better that's going to help alleviate whatever got me to frustration in the first place. Do you see? We want to invest in the things that do more things. We want to invest in the type of emotions and behaviors that actually get us more value. So I want to put more of a process, more energy and effort in the things that attract people to me, the things that attract things I want to me. I want to do more of the things that get. So they talked about smiling. Now, sometimes people think it's disingenuous to smile when you're angry, and they say, "I'm not going to fake smile." Nobody's asking you to fake smile. We're asking you to try to smile. You see, when you fake smile, you can do that. Nothing's going to happen. But if you try to smile, maybe you don't get the whole smile out, but it's the beginning. It starts a behavior. Have you ever tried to whistle when you're angry? Next time you're angry, try to whistle. It is near impossible to whistle when you're angry. And so sometimes just engaging in those behaviors help you move towards better behaviors. All right, Kelsey's shifting the topic a little bit on a different topic. If you want to get to it, we don't have to if we don't have time. One of my current issues I would like to discuss is working through how to help mid-level leaders have courage to express concerns, but also accept that they don't run a business by democracy. I am struggling with mid-level leaders being frustrated that they feel they don't have the information, but they also aren't willing to ask. Very good. Good question. Absolutely, we could talk about this. Because again, this goes into the prioritizing things that do more things. Like, for example, them gossiping, them being frustrated, what does it do for them? Okay, this is what we want to challenge them with, versus what does asking do for you? Okay, this is a prime example of what I mean. We want them to prioritize behaviors. So we're going to go to them and we're going to say, okay, right now what we're doing is we're frustrated by it. This is what we're doing. All right. We're gossiping about it. Okay, this is what we're doing. We're stressing about it. Okay, this is what we're doing. And we're becoming resentful about it. This is what we're doing. Okay. Now, of those things, being resentful, being angry, being frustrated, what are those things producing for you? What do they do for you? And what we would inevitably come to find out is nothing. Actually, it's worse than nothing because it's creating a more negative environment, which is making it even worse for you. Now, we know what those things do. What would asking do? What asking would do is gives you the opportunity to get clarity, gives you the opportunity to get understanding. It gives you the opportunity to express your feelings to a person who might actually be able to impact the outcome. And it gives you an opportunity to be on the record. So on the arc of behaviors, people know where you stand, which means you're more likely to be considered in future decisions. So what we want people to understand is that logic. Prioritize the thing that does the most things for you. So if we have a choice between complaining, being frustrated, gossiping, or asking, which one is going to provide us the best value? Asking. That's the one that we prioritize. I'm not saying that you don't feel these things. I'm saying you go into a process that gets you to tap into the thing that does the most for you first. Okay, first. So that's number one. The other thing is that you have to be open to the idea that some of the leaders in your organization need to sage the room, so to speak. Sometimes you got to clear the bad juju out of a room because rooms carry energy. I want all of you to think about what your experiences have been in someone's office. Or what does it feel like when you're called into the office? What's the energy when you get called into the office? You know, back in the day, when people used to have kind of the old school kind of environments, you would go to somebody's desk or office. It'd be this big office with this big like oak desk with this huge throne of a chair on this side, and then there'll be an itty bitty little chair for you on the other side. What was that meant to communicate? In most cases, power, right? I have it, you don't, I'm in charge or not. So when people go into the office, right, it produces emotions in them. As soon as you come out of the office, what do people do? Ooh, what they say, what they say, what they say, right? It just produces energy, not just in you, but the people around you. So sometimes we got to sanctify the energy a little bit. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I used to do when I was, leading teams for another organization is I would really work hard to get people comfortable to come into my office and in my space. So number one, what I would do is I would specifically ask them to come in my office for things that had nothing to do with anything that could be perceived as negative. And I would ask them to log it. Hey, how did that feel coming in here? Cool. All right. Yeah. So come in and talk to me. It is normal to you. Yeah, sure. All right. Then I would put donuts in the back of my office or whatever kind of treat or whatever. And I would ask people, I say, hey, y'all, I got donuts. Come get them. And I would put them in the back of my office so they would have to kind of walk in. And what would always happen is in the beginning, people would come by and they would say, they would come by like they were diffusing a bomb. They would knock on my door and they would say, your email said there were donuts in here. It's like, yeah, grab one. And they would like kind of start slowly tiptoeing in my office. I was like, what are you doing? Just get the donut. It's all good. Well, I just want to, I didn't know. And then they would go over to the donuts and they put, so I can have this one? I can have any of them? Yes, grab a donut, relax. And that would happen over time, until I had to, really be like, hey, y'all got to let me work for a little while. And now that we started to develop that healthy relationship where people could come into my office and they didn't feel like they were going to the gallows or walking the plank. They didn't feel like they were going to get their comeuppance or get dressed down. They were coming to talk to a human about human things. Once we started to do that, people brought me issues. Here's the other thing that I would advise you. Timing, tact, and delivery. When they did bring me said issues, we had to do a lot of work to ensure that they brought these issues with respect so that I actually had an opportunity to listen to them. Because what people have to understand is, in order to be heard, all you have to do is make noise. If you want to be listened to, you need to make sense. So if you come over to me making noise, that's not necessarily going to get me to listen to you. I'll hear you and we'll deal with that. But if you want me to listen to you, I'm going to need you to make sense. And so I had a person come into my office one time and they just came in on the energy. I'm so sick of this and I don't like this. Da, 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 da. And I just said, time out. I said, time out. What did you want to get out of this conversation? What were you looking to accomplish by coming to see me right now? And they say, well, I wanted you to help me with this or I want to fix that. I said, so you want my assistance? Yes. Okay. Given that you want my assistance, is coming in with this energy as if I'm doing something to you, coming in and bringing this energy into my office, do you think that's the best way to get me to participate in something with you? Or do you think there's a better way that you might be able to communicate this to me? There's probably a better way. Okay, let's try that. Let's start over. Hey, can I talk to you about something quick? Absolutely, have a seat. Part of what I want people to understand is that you can't deliver the message just any kind of way and expect me to truly receive it and particularly do something about it. You know, first of all, especially in small businesses or any business of any kind, but I can tell you this for entrepreneurs, nobody starts a business so they can be bullied by people. Okay. I can guarantee you that. No one starts a business, no one goes through that risk, no one goes through that problem. So somebody's going to decree things to them with attitude and energy. That's just not the best way to get me to do anything. And so I want people to know the best way to get me to do things because I want to do things for them. Right. And so, what I want to encourage people to do, of the two ways that you can approach me, this way will not produce what you want and runs the potential of producing an environment that you don't want. This way makes it more likely that I hear you, makes it more likely that I'll entertain what you have to say, makes it more likely that I'll participate in what you want me to participate in. But if you come at me with an energy that's nasty, that's mean, that's cruel, that's disrespectful, I'm not likely to come along with you because I'm not going to set the precedence that this is how you approach me if you want me to do something. Most people in general are push-pull, especially leaders. You push them, they pull. We want people working in conjunction with us. We want people working in collaboration with us. So I want to talk to that person like a collaborator. I want to talk to that person like I want a relationship with them afterwards. Excuse me. You can always tell the real intent of a person in moments of conflict because you can tell the difference between someone who's talking to someone as if they want a relationship after this, if they can see a future of us moving past this moment versus somebody that is communicating to you like it's all on the line. Like if they don't get what they want, it's over. If they leave frustrated, it's over. If we can't figure it all out right now, it's over. That doesn't speak to wanting a genuine relationship with the person. You know, sometimes I'm going to be wrong, and this is another thing I just want to add as a piece of context. And if you all have anything you want me to get into, just go ahead and throw it in there. We got about 13 minutes left. One of the things that's really important for people to understand is accurate articulation of their emotions, accurate articulation. Sometimes people just put all their emotions in like the core four, right? Happy, anger, fear, stress, whatever, or anxiety. Like there's like a core 5 or 6 kind of emotions people just dump everything into. We're going to ask people to be more articulate about what they're feeling so that how they respond is more considerate, right? Here's what I mean. If you've never come and talked to me and developed an expectation that I would do X, Y, or Z, and I end up doing A, B, and C, it's easy for me to understand how you would be disappointed because you thought I would do X, Y, or Z. That makes sense that you're disappointed. What it doesn't make sense is why you're angry. Did you tell me you wanted me to do X, Y, Z versus A, B, C? Did I ever give you the expectation that I would do one versus the other? Did we have an agreement that I would do one versus the other? Because if we don't, it would communicate why you would be disappointed. It doesn't speak to why you would be angry. And so getting somebody to appreciate the nuance of how they feel, that what they're actually feeling is disappointment versus anger, it's drastically going to change what that person can justify in their response. There's a great many things people can justify doing to other people in anger. Disappointment doesn't cause the same energy. So we want people to have articulate, right? To be articulate with their emotions, to be thoughtful, to be considerate about what they're actually feeling so they don't use these catch-all emotions that justify whatever behavior. And that's what we want people to do. So there's some nuance to that I really want people to get, because this is a really important subject in terms of being able to get people to talk to you about what's going on. So let's just recap a little bit about that real quick so we can put the button on that. Number one, you got to sanctify the space a little bit, right? You got to make some of these environments healthy because we don't know the types of things that happen in these walls that hold energy in terms of why people feel like they can't come to you. Now, here's what you got to also appreciate too. It may have nothing to do with you. This is why we have to be secure leaders. The thing that keeps somebody from coming to talk to you might have nothing to do with you. That might be a previous leader that they had. That might be a teacher or coach that they had. That might be a parent that they had that didn't make them believe that their voice mattered. Most of us of a certain age, if you're over 30, you are almost for certain have heard this phrase. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. What a strange concept. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. So many of us was raised in the environment where people went out of our way to let us know that we did not have agency. Virtually every room you have ever walked into in your life has already had rules waiting for you. When you came into the world, there were already rules there. Rules you didn't get to vote on, rules you didn't get to help put into place, rules no one got your opinion about, and you're expected to follow those rules. From the very beginning, and in your most sponge-like state in the early stages of your life, you are a dependent. You are solely dependent on people. And so everything in your formation suggests you don't have power, suggests you don't have control. And so it's a departure from how people have been taught to think differently. And what we have to teach people is that power lies where people think it lies. If you think power lies with you, it does. If you think power lies with them, it does. And so one of the things that isn't our reflex, particularly in organizations, is to teach people they have power. In many cases, organizations are benefited by, or at least they believe they're benefited by suggesting that people don't have power. This is why people tend to unionize, because they don't feel like the individual has any type of real control or representation or agency. So as organizations and as leaders, one of the things we have to drive people to do is to appreciate that they have power. Why is this so important? Because if people don't know that they have power, they'll never take responsibility for it. And this is one of the concepts I want to leave us with. One of the things that leaders really are challenged by is speaking to impact. Parents run some challenges in doing this as well. Many people don't speak to the impact. A lot of people do this kind of strip mall stoicism type of thing where, they can't be impacted, they can't be hurt. But when you were young and one of your siblings or one of your cousins or something like that would pinch you and you would say, that didn't hurt, what would they do? They would pinch you harder, because it's harder for people to have affection for you if they don't know that they can affect you, right? So if you're a wall, what's the big deal if I throw a couple rocks at you? So a lot of times what we don't do is we don't communicate the impact that people can have on us, because we don't want them to think that they have power to impact us. But here's the thing. I want people to know you have the power to hurt me, right? You have the power to do that. The real question is, do you want to? And why? See, if a person doesn't know they have the power, they can never take responsibility for it. You can hurt the people that you love. You can. You have the power to. You can disrupt what's happening at your organization. You can, if you wanted to. You can make your community less safe, less healthy, less happy. You can if you want to, but do you want to, and why? Now that you have to take ownership of the power that you have, with every great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man. Okay, with every great power comes responsibility. Sammy, what up? He asked the question, can you touch on how to disarm? Absolutely. First step of disarmament is this. It is very difficult to get someone out of a state that you occupy, and it is very difficult to get them into a state that you don't. Let me say it again. It is very hard to get people out of a state that you occupy, and it's very difficult to get them into a state that you don't. For example, will we send an anxious person to stop an anxious person from being anxious? No. Will we send an angry person to stop an angry person from being angry? No. Rather, we want to occupy the state we want that person to enter into. Have you ever seen two people who looked like they were going to fight? What did they end up doing? Fighting. Because once the energy is there, the chances that somebody leaves that state in and of themselves and de-escalates it is very, 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 very low. So one of the first things that we want to do in terms of disarming people is to example the desired state. If I want you to get into the state I need to be able to example it. Because why would you give up being angry to be calm if I can't do it? And so I want to approach with the energy that I want. Now, sometimes it's not always about anger and calm. Sometimes it's just about disarming people with joy or love or whatever. But the first thing that we want to do is choose the states we want to enter into. This is one thing that people just rarely do. It is impossible for all of you to walk into a room and have a no impact. It's impossible. It's impossible for you to walk into the room and not impact the energy. You're going to raise the energy or decrease it. You're going to make it better. You're going to make it worse. My question to all of you is, how many of you are intentional about the energy you choose to bring into a room before you enter into that room? How many of you, before you go into a room, say, I want to bring in a joyful energy into this room? Or I want to bring an encouraging energy into this room. I want to bring a loving energy into this room, right? How many of you are choosing the energy that you want to bring in? Some people just take whatever energy somebody offers them. Somebody offers you anger, you take it. Somebody offers you doubt, you take it. Instead of having a conscious conversation with yourself and saying, what energy do I want to be in? And that is what's going to lead you to disarm. The other thing is curiosity. So we want to choose the state that they were in, and we want to lead with curiosity. The difference between curiosity and suspicion is you think you know. Curiosity is you'd like to. I'd like to know. Even if you got a problem with me, I like to know what the problem is, because there may be some truth in it. There may be something that I could address. I'm open to the idea as long as you approach me with timing, tact, and delivery. Right? So what we want to be thoughtful about is, number one, what state do we want to enter into? What energy do we want to bring into this particular space? And then we want to enter in with curiosity. Seek first to understand and then be understood. Seek first to understand and then be understood. Let's see here what we got here. I'm working this myself here. V, can you talk about the difference between fighting back or getting angry and not letting people walk all over you or setting your boundaries? You know, this is one of those things too, and I'm a big believer in this. I really genuinely work very hard to be a loving, caring, zen, thoughtful, considerate person. That should never cause somebody to believe that I'm something to be played with, because I'm not, right? But here's the thing about actually being secure. This is why we talk about being secure leaders. When I walk into a room, I know I'm okay for a lot of reasons. I know I'm okay because I'm thoughtful about the rooms I put myself in. I'm okay because I know I speak my boundaries with some clarity. I know I'm okay because I got hands. I know I'm okay because I'm strong mentally, because I work on strengthening myself mentally. I know I'm okay. So when I know I'm okay, I could come into a room and I could talk to a person and not have to worry about them misinterpreting my kindness for weakness, because I'm providing clarity. Right? So I don't have to be angry with you to push back on your behavior. I don't have to be mad at you to challenge what you think. I'm going to come to you as a fully autonomous, thoughtful adult. I'm going to use my words and I'm going to let you know with extreme clarity what I need, because I'm never going to ask for what I need. I try not to ask for more than what I want, but I'll never ask for less than what I need. So if somebody is stepping my boundaries into a point where they are disrupting what I need for safety, for health, for peace, we got to have a conversation. It doesn't have to be angry. We don't have to be flailing our arms. We're going to have a conversation. Listen, it's important for you to understand that there is a certain way that I'm going to be spoken to, because as an adult, that is a respect that I deserve. That's a respect that I expect. That's a respect that I demand. That is a minimum requirement for me being anywhere. And the way that you talked to me this morning suggested that you don't respect me on that level. I'm not saying that you did anything on purpose. I'm not saying that you intended to hurt me. I'm letting you know what the outcome was so that we don't arrive at this place again. Now, I'd like to tell you how I would prefer to be talked to, because I want you to be successful and I want to be able to work with you. But I just want to be clear, the way that you spoke to me this morning is not going to meet that standard. Now, I'm not throwing nothing. I'm not flipping any tables, but I'm sure you can feel, even through the screen, that I'm serious, right? So It doesn't call for us to get out of pocket. It doesn't call for us to be small or petty or negative or rude or any of those other kinds of things. So this is not about being Midwest nice. This is about being real life kind. And kindness is clarity. I want you to know where I'm at so you can deal with me effectively, because I want you to get a good outcome. And I want you to know where I'm at so that I can deal with you effectively, which is going to also get you a better outcome. So I want you to, that's the biggest thing, is to not confuse the two. Okay? It's the biggest thing, is to not confuse the two. You don't have to surrender your agency to be kind and thoughtful. In fact, you will be exempling kindness the more clear you are with your boundaries and how you should be treated. Remember, don't ask for more than what you want. That's greed, right? That's not going to lead to what you want. And there's only so long you can use the devil's tools before you do the devil's work, right? So we don't want to play in that area. So don't ask for more than what you want, but don't you dare take less than what you need, because you need it. So there's no discussion to be had. There's no discussion to be had. Think about what happens when you take away the things that people really need. They'll fight for it biologically. Somebody try to take away your air right now, you would fight for it. You would clasp at it, right? If you couldn't find any food, you would go forage for it. You would go hunt for it. You would go get it because you need it. And if respect, care, consideration, and love are things that you need, you will fight for them. That doesn't mean that you always got to bring a weapon. It means you got to be prepared. It means you have to be fortified. It means you have to be thoughtful. It means you have to be considerate. It means you have to really want to do the things that are going to get you what you need. So I'm going to give you just a little thing here for overtime, and then we're going to go ahead and shut this down. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you guys got a lot going on, but on this Friday, I want us to really be thoughtful, because as we go into the weekend, I want you to work on these skills, and I want you to think about these things that we've talked about, not for work, but for your life and in your relationships, right? How are we prioritizing our efforts? How are we prioritizing our process? What are we giving energy to? Where are we putting it, and for what purpose? Do you have a process to move you out of certain behaviors or emotions and into more valuable behaviors or emotions, right? Are we being thoughtful about how we disarm folks and coming in with the right energy, choosing the energy in which we want to enter into an environment? That's what I want everybody to do. The next room you walk into, before you walk into it, I want you to decide, how am I coming into this room? What energy am I bringing? And I want you to take note of how you change the dynamic of that energy. I want you to take note of how people respond to you. Do they smile? Do they laugh? Do they, you know what I mean? Do they look you in the eye? Do they lean in? Really take note of how people treat you when you're being thoughtful. What you will find is we are very, very good at making people feel what we want to. We are very good at it. In the times of your life where you wanted somebody to feel stupid, they probably did. In the times in your life where you wanted somebody to feel loved, they probably did. In the times in your life where you wanted somebody to feel supported, they probably did. We are very, very good at encouraging people to feel what we want them to feel. What we rarely do is do it on purpose, which means you likely have had somebody in your life hurt your feelings, and they probably said, I didn't mean to. The question you want to ask them, did you mean not to? What did you mean to do? And many times you will find they had no intention. And remember, when we're not behaving in intention, it leaves space for the unintentional to happen. This is why we want to be purposeful. So this is the message of the week as we talk about this piece of it. Let's see here. Thank you. And a lot of times we know what we want to do, we just don't know how. And here's the other thing that I want to leave you with on this one. You're right. We don't necessarily know how, but here's what I want to give you. I hate when people say the phrase, or I very much dislike when people say the phrase, fake it till you make it. The reason why I don't like that phrase is if you fake it till you make it, you'll never learn how to do it. You'll only learn how to look like you're doing it. Rather, we ask people to do it until they do it well. So what I would encourage you to do is have those conversations. Some may not go as well as you would plan, but what you will find out is that they will almost never go as bad as you think they will, because nothing matches the boogeyman we have in our minds, because you know what scares you. And if you really pay attention, most conversations you have will go better than you thought they would. Listen to the data. Listen to the data and keep getting reps. Keep having conversations. Now, last thing I'm gonna say to you, we want to have these conversations as early as possible. We call it saving yourself a straw. We want to have straw conversations. You see, everybody always talks about how the straw breaks the camel's back, but a straw can't break a camel's back. It takes a lot of straws. Obviously, we focus on the last one because that's the one that did it. But ultimately, all of them did it. And so what we want to do is we want to save ourselves a straw. We want to have as many straw conversations as possible so they don't pile up on us, and they're easier, more approachable conversations to have. And the more of those conversations you have, the more you'll build the muscle and the skill set of having effective conversations while doing yourself the favor of saving yourself a straw. So it might just be as simple as, hey, would you mind putting this over here? Because when you put it over there, it makes it hard for me to get to, and it's a little frustrating. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's a straw conversation. Because otherwise, you would have watched that person over the next 2 or 3 years put it in a place where you don't like it, that's frustrated for you, develop resentment for that person, and then eventually you'll snap on them. And now that person is not going to cooperate with you anymore because how you came at them. So we want to save ourselves a straw by having regular straw conversations. It's going to build up our skill set. It's going to build up our confidence, and it's going to make it less likely that we have big blowups rather than small, less consequential conversations. Okay, so that is how we are going to leave it today. Thank you so much. We're going to keep working this format. If you have feedback for us, we would love to hear that. Hit us up on all of our socials. You can message us, shoot us a DM if there's something more you'd like to see for us to do a little bit different. These are always things that we're working on and evolving. We're trying to find the best ways to stay connected with you all and deliver value to you, which can be challenged sometimes with a small team, but we're going to keep doing our best. Having your feedback and having your encouragement really helps that process. So like and subscribe when and where you can. Give us that feedback in the DMs. We definitely appreciate that. And the next time you see one of these, make sure you share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you spending time with us. And until next time, Vaney Hariri, co-founder of Think3D. Make sure you stay with us in all of our content, and we will talk to you soon.